Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. A little bit of commentary and maybe confession, in a sense. Not really a confession, but I guess some might see it that way. Why did I choose the term socialism from below, third worldism, fourth worldism, as my own reference to Maoism, third worldism? And please, again, be aware that when I say socialism from below, third worldism, fourth worldism, I am definitely referring to Maoism, third worldism, at least as I develop it. I mean, there is no lexicon or no book which establishes the prerequisites of being a Maoist third worldist. There's no actual set of dogmas that one needs to accept. And so inevitably, my own approach to Maoism, third worldism, will be my approach. It will not be the same as the approach of every other person. And that's the way I think it should be. We are all individuals. We think on our own. We each have our own agency. As far as I know, for example, I am the only Maoist third worldist which grounds it in the critical realism of Roy Bhaskar. So that's one example. As far as I know, I am the only Maoist third worldist which also incorporates intersectional Marxism and kyriarchy, which I've discussed in previous episodes of this podcast. But one more thing. Why did I include the term socialism from below? And that is I wanted to say secret. It's not really a secret, but it's more something that I have felt, and but it's not something that I've mentioned explicitly. So I decided to go ahead and say, what the heck? I will mention it explicitly. Anybody who knows me, anybody who's known me for decades, knows that I love Red Rosa Luxembourg. Now, this may sound odd. Well, it is odd. When I say I love her, I mean I really love her. And interpret that as you like. In a sense, I feel like I am in love with her. Now, honestly, I don't know what that means, since I have never actually been in love with a human being who was alive at the same time as me. So it could be that I'm simply mistaken in my view of what it means to be in love with somebody. Some might say that in order to be in love with a person, you need to spend time with that individual, get to know them, know what their faults are, their virtues are, and appreciate all of them, and say, well, I can live with this person. Here is somebody that I can genuinely adore. Romantic love, I can tell you as a sociologist, is commonly a short-term phenomenon. It usually lasts about 1 year. There is an old sociologist, and I mean old, he's dead for a long time. He had the unusual name of Willard Waller, which when I first heard of it, I thought, is that the name of a duck? But that was his name. His parents gave him the name Willard, and his family name was Waller, so he became Willard Waller. I mean, honestly, if I were born with that name, I would probably shorten it, maybe like Will Waller, something like that. But he didn't do that. He kept Willard Waller. And I guess that shows a great deal of confidence on his part. I would not have that degree of confidence. I would not like to be called Willard Waller, but that was fine with him. Willard Waller came up with this concept called idealization. What idealization refers to is that when people are seeing each other, when people are dating, and he meant a male and a female, Back at that time, the idea of same-sex relationships was not even discussed. So he was referring, in all honesty, to female-male relationships. Now, of course, it could be expanded to include same-sex relationships as well. But that's not what Waller had in mind. What he said is that when people are in that kind of dating, they develop what he referred to as idealization. What he meant by that is that they begin to put each other on a pedestal. And so rather than getting to know the person, they get to know the ideal, what they think the person really is. And usually we do not conform to an ideal. We are real, flesh and blood human beings. People may like us in an ideal way, but we are not ideal people. We are just people. So what happens after about a year or so of marriage? People realize, oh my goodness, my husband, my wife, whatever, is not this magical, spectacular being that I thought she or he was before marriage. This person is a regular person. Well, surprise, surprise. We are all just regular people. And so what happens at that point is that there is often a crisis in the relationship based on romantic love or idealization. At that point, those two people may develop another kind of love, which can be called conjugal love. Conjugal love is love based not on an ideal conception of who that person is, but based on the reality of living with that person, things that you share in common with them, things that can last you for the rest of your marriage. Ideally, I probably shouldn't say ideally, but can last the rest of the marriage, hopefully. I guess hopefully is better than ideally. Now, of course, it doesn't always work out that way, but at least it gives you hope. You have some hope that perhaps this marriage can last beyond the time when romantic love basically dies out. Because in general, when you are dating someone, you are not really, according to Waller, dating that person. You are dating your idealization of that person. You have some conception of who that individual is, which does not entirely conform to reality. And so at the end of the year, either the marriage ends or it becomes a very tumultuous marriage, or you find a way to get along with the person. Hopefully, you have things in common. Sadly, what romantic love tends to do is it discourages people from learning about the other person. It encourages people to fall in love, for example, with that person's physical appearance, with that person's voice, with how that person dresses. And of course, all of those are externalities. And eventually, as one might expect, one gets tired of those things. In other words, you get used to that person. Over the years, the person gets older. That person is not that beauty or that handsome man that you thought you married at the very beginning of your relationship. No, that person is an ordinary human being. Okay, well, that's enough on that. So hopefully, idealization or romance is replaced at some point with conjugal love. And conjugal love is the kind of love which, according to Waller, can last for the duration of the marriage. Romantic love cannot. Now, I am not entirely sure that I agree with Waller, at least not as it pertains to me. Maybe what he is saying is true with marriages. Maybe. I'm not going to dismiss that. But my love for Red Rosa Luxemburg is, in my opinion, a romantic love. I know that sounds really strange. You must think I'm a total weirdo. And guess what? I am a total weirdo. So if you think that, you're right. But regardless, I love her as if she were my wife. I have always loved her from the first time I came across her work, from the first time I looked into her eyes in her photograph. I said, this is the woman of my dreams. Now, as an autistic, I have never had a woman of my dreams. I have never had a girlfriend. I have had, I guess, what some might call dates, although they really were not successful dates. They were dead end dates, but I guess you could call them dates in a sense, but not really anything that led to a long-term relationship. I have never had a long-term relationship with a woman. And when I was younger, I really wanted that. As the years progressed, I gave up, and it wasn't until later that I realized the reason why I was having trouble in that department was because I'm autistic, and autistics either have really lousy marriages, like my father's marriage to my mother, he was an autistic, or like many people I know who are autistic, who have either never gotten married, or if they have, the marriages are really bad, or the marriages end pretty quickly in divorce. I have known that with many people I know, but the majority of autistics I know have never been married. And the relationships they have had with women or men have generally been bad. Generally. So, in my case, I am in love with someone I have never met. Not only that, but a woman who was assassinated in a really horrible way in 1919, the same year that my father was born. That's a long time ago. I had old parents. Why? Because my parents tried to have a kid once. My mother had a miscarriage. And for about 10 years, my mother had severe abdominal pain. And so she waited for 10 years to try again. To my recollection, she still had abdominal pain even then. What she told me was that when she gave birth to me, the abdominal pain went away. But regardless of what you think of that, as a result of that, my parents are older than most people my age, and I am 68. My father, born in 1919, same year that Red Rosa was assassinated. My mother, born in, I think, 1924, although it might be 1925. I've never been good with ages, but I think 1924 or 1925. One of those two, anyway. So the fact that I love Rosa so deeply, and I do love her deeply, anybody who knows me well knows I love Rosa deeply. Why? Because I constantly talk about her. She is a beloved to me. I will often call her my beloved. I have tremendous affection for her beyond what would normally be expected that a person would have for a communist leader. I have not known anybody who looked to a communist leader in the way that I look to Red Rosa. Nobody. Maybe there are people. I assume there are, but nobody I've met. So, needless to say, when I chose the term socialism from below, third worldism, fourth worldism, for Maoism, third worldism. Part of the reason I chose it, and this is the part that most of you probably don't know, was because by choosing socialism from below, it allowed me to include my beloved Red Rosa. Because if Rosa was anything, she was a socialist from below. She was a democratic socialist. She believed that socialism needed to begin at the grassroots. And that is what I believe as well. I adore Red Rosa. And so, am I a Maoist third worldist? Yes. Am I in love with Mao Zedong? No. Do I like him? Yes. Do I love his ideas? Yes. But personally, I have no affection for the man. Not personally. I respect his work. I respect his life. I respect his sacrifices. There are a lot of things about Chairman Mao that I love, but not him. Not him in the same way that I love Red Rosa Luxemburg. And so that, I will admit, is the real reason that I chose the name Socialism from Below, Third Worldism, Fourth Worldism, because it allowed me to include Red Rosa. I could not imagine being a communist without Red Rosa, including Red Rosa in the name of my tendency, even. I have been doing that for decades. Decades. Now, the names have changed, but Rosa has stayed in. I adore her, again, as if I think she were my wife. Now, that is my own thought. Am I right? How do I know? Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something else to romantic love that I don't see. But as best I personally can understand it, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I am literally in love with Red Rosa Luxemburg. And I look to her, when I look at her face, even, I look at that great woman's face, and I feel inspired. She inspires me. Her work inspires me. The fact that, like me, she was an academic, like me, she had a true doctoral degree, a doctor in laws degree, not the common JD degree, Juris Doctor, which in the US used to be called a Bachelor of Law. Not that. She had a genuine Doctor of Law degree, which you can also get here in the US. It is 2 degrees higher than the JD. You get the JD, then you get a Master of Law, then you get a Doctor of Law. Do most lawyers get that? No. Most lawyers finish with the JD. That's their business. But Rosa? No. Rosa had a Doctor of Law. And so because I am an academic, and I admire academics, because for the last 20 years, I have had a heart that was given to me by the beloved Horia, the black-eyed maiden of white light, I cannot but adore her. My heart goes to you, dear Red Rosa. My heart belongs to you, dear Red Rosa. For the time being, this has been Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.